Hmm. Hmm. So that's how the gyroscopic whirly gig works. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Meta Monday Analysis with me, Skari, your grateful host. I have been perusing the new Ork codex, and I will be doing a live stream soon with the likes of Richard Kilton and Steve Pampreen, Mr. Pampreen, who are both excellent Ork players historically. So we're going to be going over and doing a full book review. Unlike the book reviews of yore, this book has already sort of been released with the Beast Snagger box. So this is a Monday show that I tend to do with the patrons. So patrons get 2 videos every week that I do, Meta Monday Analysis, or colloquially called MMA. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have List Crunch, which is a Friday show where patrons get to submit an army list, and I get to read it, critique it, and give advice, look at it being illegal and whatnot. So on the Monday show, Meta Monday, you get to ask questions. I answer them live. We go over the state of the meta and things that happened in this weekend. We go over new releases, and we talk about things that sort of mattered in the Warhammer universe so far. So sit back, relax. I hope you enjoy the show. It's about half an hour, 45 minutes, nothing too crazy long. And what I've done today is I've released it, like I do ever so often, to everyone on YouTube. But if you'd like to support the channel, please consider heading over to the Patreon page and becoming a patron and a Denizen community supporter. That helps me create content. Other than that, that's it. Enough plugs. Let's dive right into the nitty gritty. This weekend, I think one of the biggest talks of this weekend was that we had the Lone Star Open. So there was a couple of big events. The Lone Star Open being the biggest event that happened this weekend. It was a 165 player major, and it went 6 rounds to seed a top 8. And then on the Sunday, it was a single elimination 3-round tournament to crown a victor. And at the end of the dust that was settled, Mr. John Lennon, fellow Art of War coach, teammate, John Lennon ended up winning with his Sisters of Battle. I had the pleasure of being asked by Val Heffelfinger and Paul Murphy and Adam Camilleri to help shoutcast the event, which was awesome. I really enjoyed shoutcasting the event on the Sunday. You know, they had different shoutcasters on the Friday and the Saturday. Dustin from the Stutter Scrub podcast, for example, was also there helping out. But I got to shoutcast 3 rounds of high level competitive 40k on the Sunday, and it was an absolute hoot. Captain Athenos in chat says, Mr. Skari, good day. Good day to you, Captain Athenos in chat, as well as Eric and Pink Gorilla, which is a great name. And Riley. Hello, Riley. How are you? Thank you for tuning in, everyone, in chat. I do have the live chat going. Of course, if you're watching the recording, you missed out. So you should have your notifications on so that whenever I do another live video, you don't miss it. It's a little bell, apparently. Do I know how that works? No. Okay, so let's dive into that event. And then we do have a couple of, we'll go over some patron questions that were submitted as well on the patron Discord, as well as the other stuff. And then we'll, you know, if you have a question as well, please feel free to post it in the comment section, post it in the chat. You know, I tend to answer pretty much every comment that comes my way as well. And if you had any events or lists that you'd like us to discuss, that'd be great. So let's dive into what mattered to me in the hobby. First and foremost, holy crap, did you see those dragons that they released for Age of Sigmar today? Games Workshop is just like, hold my proverbial beer, and I'm going to give you dragons. And if there's one thing that I love, it's dragons. Like, that's nuts. So that was really cool today, going through that. Another thing is we've got the new kill team coming up. We have Like Kill Team's getting a whole new overhaul. The models for Death Corps of Krieg, by the way, are phenomenal. If you haven't seen them already, if you're a guard player or even just a general Warhammer 40,000 player and person who loves the hobby in general, those models are fantastic, as well as the commandos, which I think are going to be really cool. But dragons are amazing. Captain Athenos in chat says, so sexy. Yes, definitely. Jared Coots says, looking at getting back into 40k, how are Chaos Demons holding up? Well, they're not terrible. Demons have some decent builds. They're very much all or nothing in the build. And of course, with the release of Bellacore, there's been some interesting stuff coming out of the woodwork with a combination of demons and Chaos Space Marines kind of melded together. Chaos needs an overhaul. Like Death Guard are good. They're solid codex, very sort of monotonous, but that's what Death Guard are. Then we've got Thousand Suns coming down the woodwork, which hopefully gives Chaos a bit of an injection of oomph, of warp energy, and then we'll go from there. But in terms of Chaos is cool because you can mix and match, and I feel that it benefits greatly from taking from lots of different things, melding them together into something that sort of like has overlapping things that overlap over things that overlap over things, which means to make a good chaos list, you're using a lot of brain power and it's a little confusing. However, it rewards someone that is very diligent in getting the points and getting the rules and mixing and matching things all over the place. But if you disagree with me, please let me know, chat. Because I was very positive in the stream on Sunday, saying things like, this is the most balanced I've ever seen Warhammer 40,000. People were not liking that comment. Well, some people in chat. I was like, is that a big statement? Am I just a chronic optimist that says only positive things and is like naive? Is that who I am? Archon Skari, the naive Archon? Dan Salmons says, Orks took a ton of nerfs, but thankfully have a few viable builds. Whoa! I'm looking forward to seeing what Orks do. From what I've heard, there are some really good like character heavy builds with like warlords going around doing a bunch of damage, which makes sense. But I'm curious. I have a battle report I'll be filming tomorrow with the new Orks against Mr. Grovengrove. Which I played against him when my book came out, and now we're going to basically have a rematch with his new Orc Codex, and so we're going to see what he can cook up. But he's like a diehard Orc fan from like many editions, so he oozes Orc. Most Orc players ooze Orc, and then Orcs pop up everywhere, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, new releases. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Orc Codex, or the Orc Codex technically got released, even though it had been leaked forever. Kill Team stuff has been popped up. We've got the dragons. Dragons. I've been getting ready to do a lot of AOS, as you can see. This is the thing that I've been kind of working on right now. This model right here. When did I show this off? I think it was List Crunch. This model right here, the White King on a skeletal steed, is the model that made me basically get back into AOS, playing Death. I was like, you know what I need? I need that model exclusively. So now I have a Nagash, and I've got dogs, and I got lots of skellies, and I got a cursed city I still need to build and paint. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Kyle from Gear Guts Mech Shop in the chat saying, new book, so good. It's cool because you're also one of those diehard Orc fans. Plus, we have coming up, we've got a date for the big game last weekend of September, which is going to be amazing. I'm so excited. We're going to have 120,000 points of Orcs versus 120,000 points of everything we can muster against that many Orcs. And we're going to stream it over the course of a weekend. It's going to be really fun using the Apocalypse rules. So stay tuned for that, because Kyle from Gear Guts Mech Shop basically brings his whole collection, and we put a hodgepodge of players together to try and face him. That's happened 2 years now. This will be the third year that it happens, and I'm excited. It's gonna be good. I wouldn't say your balance though is out of touch. Reddit is always quick to forget the past. Castle and Ironhands in Ari. Even though I posted this video on Reddit, I rarely check Reddit at all. I feel like there are a lot of negative people on Reddit. I don't know what is it about an open source like forum essentially, because that's what Reddit is, like an old school forum where you can kind of upvote, downvote stuff. But I mean, what is it about that sort of scenario that just like breeds in certain like zeitgeist mentality of some sort? Like the whole common discourse is really like tends to be relatively negative. Well, at least that's just the ones that get outwardly shown or like expressed more freely. It's funny because after that I like posted on Twitter. By the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter, I'm pretty funny on Twitter. I think not as funny as Innes or Tom, but we harass each other a lot at Skari2 on Twitter. And I was like, welcome to positive 40k space, and it seemed to get some. People seem to appreciate the fact that positive. You know what? And I've said this before, and this is part of like Meta Monday analysis. 40k is, I mean, life in general, not 40k. Life in general is too short to be like grumpy the whole time. We play with little toy soldiers, literally. Look at this guy. He's a Helion. He flies around, does zoom zoom and pew pew noises. And if you take it too seriously, what are you doing? we play with little toy soldiers, even though you can be really competitive and play the game like a chess match. Like really play the game. It's toy soldiers. You know what I mean? Like seriously. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so seedless watermelons. How do they do it? All in all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my BCP app. So one of the things I have is a subscription to Best Coast Pairings, which allows me to sort of like pick up all the event listings and things like that for the game, and lets me look at events and tournaments and things that happened like in the game itself in the day. So it was the 22nd of July, I believe, was this weekend. And we did have a couple of big events. No, that's June. We need July. Nice. There was a couple of different things. We had the Lone Star Open, July 23rd. Sorry, 23rd. Yeah, because that started on the Friday. There were quite a lot of events this weekend. Like it's just now the events are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's a couple of events that I did want to touch on. So stick around. We're going to talk about a couple of the lists that we're seeing at the top. An AdMech seems to be going on this massive mega train of destruction like it has normally. However, it was nice to see it defeated, if that makes sense, at the Lone Star Open. There were, people, you can either play the meta list or play a list that has tools to deal with the meta list. And on an unrelated note, I played against a Tesseract Vault. Yeah, today. And there's a Satan power where you roll one dice for each model in the unit on a 6+. You take a mortal. However, a Tesseract Vault makes it proc on 5s. And I'll tell you, it killed my 20 racks pretty damn quickly, which I would assume translates very well to killing a bunch of Rangers and Vanguards. So, I don't know. Something food for thought, Necron players. There was a Necron that went to the semi-finals at the Lone Star Open. So anything is possible. Okay, that's what I said. Matthew Dugan says, a lot of Reddit is misreading a rule and going off the deep end. There was recently a really active post about kill rigs using relics and traits that didn't work or couldn't get put on that model or whatever. Okay, makes sense. I can see that. Like when you read the first sentence of a stratagem or a rule and go, that's busted. and then you make a whole assumption and like theoretical interpretation of a scenario based on the reading of that first sentence, but then don't read the second sentence, and the second sentence in the same paragraph says, unless you do this, in which case your whole argument is invalid. So a note to all of you meta watchers out there, read your rules. That's a PSA from your friendly Archon Skari. Thoughts on the mega armored warboss that can have a 2-up save and a 3-up AP, 3 bonus AP? I don't know. I haven't read the book yet, Kyle. I've been really busy. Okay, I'll read the book eventually. We're going to be doing like a full review of the book, and I'll get the orc players to tell me cool stuff, because then I can learn, teach people how to do it. I think John's Lone Star list potentially build bit of an outlier. Player placed terrain, the Battle Sanctum. Yep. Well, it wasn't. The bodyguards were everywhere, not just in the Sanctum. But that brings up a point. At the Lone Star, this is a great point, Matthew. Thank you for bringing this up. At the Lone Star Open, event had, drumroll, player placed terrain. Now, player placed terrain gets a bad rep because of Adepticon. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Well, at least that's like the big one. Like Adepticon historically has had player placed terrain, but the terrain tended to be very third edition terrain, not necessarily like the editions where player placed terrain became a thing, like in as it's fifth or sixth, and then you could essentially, there'd be one big piece and a couple of small pieces. So you'd win or lose the roll off to select the big piece and then put it in the best place to either mess with your opponent or give you a benefit. And that tended to be the case. However, I read the rules for the player placed terrain at the Lone Star Open that happened this weekend, and I liked them. So you knew where the deployment zones were, and the terrain was essentially equally split between the two players. Were they all the exact same? No, the terrain was not the exact same on both sides. However, both players tended to have about either the same number of terrain pieces or terrain pieces that did pretty much the same thing, or that were about the same size. So starting with the defender, you'd put a terrain piece down, technically go back and forth. And terrain pieces couldn't be within 4 inches of a board edge, so you can't just like cram it up against the board edge, or 4 from another piece of terrain, or 6 if they both had an asterisk, essentially. So they had like special piece of terrain, like the bigger ones that can't be within 6 inches of each other instead of 4. And then they said if you have like a fortification or whatever, just make sure that when you put your terrain down, you can fit your fortification. So all of a sudden, a piece, like a piece of kit that is in the codex, the Battle Sanctum for the Sisters of Battle. And this is not just like any fortification, right? Like I was looking at it going, oh boy, I would have loved to take the Webway Gate. And the Webway Gate is not something that people would take. And to be honest, I would take it in an Eldar army just because it has the ability to like forward deploy, and it would prevent people from like scouting up and stuff like that. But that's beyond the point. Um, it allowed him to take a large piece of terrain that was essentially another building. And the Sanctum is fantastic. It's cheap, gives you a whole bunch of rules. You can basically get miracle dice, which Sisters of Battle need all the time they need a lot of them eventually to do stuff in the game. And it's like gives you, I think it's inspiring, gives like a leadership buff and stuff like that. And it's obscuring, which is a big thing. So you can like hide things behind it and get more places to hide. The thing is, you can't place a fortification within 3 inches of another piece of terrain or the board edge, and the Sanctum is massive. And a lot of tournaments have like set terrain, and they say if you can't place your fortification is dead. You know what I mean? And so they sort of like scratch out this whole fortification mechanic at all. Now, are fortifications good? No, they're terrible. Most fortifications are absolutely terrible. The Battle Sanctum being like the exception to the rule, where it's decent. It was not bad. So, you know, it was really cool to see that army lists could be designed that way. Secondly, it was very balanced because it gave stopped the whole alpha strike on turn one. So you could like plan either very aggressive, like leapfrogging. I need this bit train here and here, so I can kind of build a tactic, a strategy before the game starts on how I want to play this game or approach this matchup. Or you could like castle, be like, I need a place to hide in this area where this objective is, or whatever it is based on the deployment, et cetera, et cetera. And that was really cool to see, you know. And all I've heard from the players that were there have been positive feedback. The only negative feedback I have heard about this player plays terrain is for people who are closed-minded and didn't go, which is a small group of people. Well, not a lot of people went, but like the closed-minded, you know, group that's no fun. Okay, that's who you are. You grumpy. I think we went over that, 5 minutes ago. Um, Dan Salmons, you are allowed. Okay, this is a valid point, by the way, Dan. I'm going to say player plays terrain and allowing the first person to deploy on the line and zone out terrain on their opponent's side was a really bad idea. Well, that's the thing. It is the first time they've done it. Maybe it should be 2 inches from the halfway point so that there's no pieces so you can't fully push the opponent's terrain all the way back, which makes sense. You know what? That is a valid point. I will give that to you. But what is one of the things they tried it? They tried it. The Frontline Gaming team was like, you know what? For the ITC, let's see if this works. Number one, it does 2 things. Number one, it cuts down massively on like manpower time. If you have to go to the LVO and set up, how many players at the LVO? 1,200 players, whatever, 600 tables of terrain. You have to put them all in the right order and stuff like that. And they get moved and shoved or whatever. You can just be like, you can just be like, I'm just going to put a box of terrain at every table, and have at it, right? And so I like that concept. I think it works really well. And I think for the savvy player, it really gives like an additional tactical level to the game, which I believe is beneficial at a competitive level. And it also stops the feel bads of, hey, I'm playing against AdMech. He's going to alpha strike me. I'm just going to lose all my models. Like if you've got your terrain pieces and you can go, you know what, this is my deployment zone. I need to just hide here. You can hide there. And it forces your opponent to sort of play maybe a little differently to force you out of your bubble or things like that. I feel like I would have loved to have my Void Raven bombers there. Just saying. So, the first event that I kind of wanted to cover briefly is the Imps Gaming July GT. So this was a 30-person GT that happened somewhere. They didn't put a place where this happened. But we have Death Guard taking first place, Drukhari taking second place, Chaos Demons taking third place, and those are and then Mechanicus was in fifth, right? But Death Guard, Greg, fantastic. Death Guard are still a very, very strong army. We've got Drukhari with Simon Miller, which is a name I have heard before. So congratulations. And then Sean with his Chaos Demons, and he was running a Chaos Demon list with a Lord of Change, some Bloodletter Bomb. I've seen the Bloodletter Bomb, by the way, come back in style. Like people are starting to take it again. I wonder what it is. I think it's the AP3, like being able to go in with AP3 and like kills a bunch of stuff. A couple of Nurgling units, some Beasts of Nurgle, which are very popular. A couple of Furies, 2 Keepers of Secrets, 30 Demonettes, and a couple of Fiends. Yep, Keepers. If there's a demon list without Slanesh Keepers of Secrets, I worry. I'm like, what is this thing? What is this place? Oh, well, it says there's a Winter GT, but there's 5 players in that one? That's not a GT. There's definitely not a GT. Ooh, we had the Critical Hit 40k event, which was a 5-round 2-dayer. It was only 20 people, so it was an RTT, but this was local to me, so I want to give a shout out to everybody who went. Hamza ended up winning with his Necrons. Good job to Hamza. He's definitely a name here in the Ontario region for winning games. Jordan Hoovey with his Harlequins. Congratulations to him. I've played him before. She did a battle report against Jordan. Make sure you check out that battle report on the channel. And then Patrick Rousseau with his Blood Angels. Awesome. And then Kevin with his Ultramarines. And then Mike Harrison with his Dark Angels. Who did he lose to the first 2 rounds? Jordan and Kevin. Okay, that makes sense. So people who did well. Nice. Other than that, cool. Necrons are surprising. When we get to the Lone Star Open, we go over that Necron list, because I really want to show it off. It is a simple Necron list with a lot of oomph. You know what I mean? Diablo says, Diablo Slay 2. The Battle Sanctum also got obscuring in the new codex. Big buff in a shooting meta. Oh yes, 100%. And there's this thing about I don't know what Sisters of players have against the Exorcist. I know the Exorcist is not good, like it's not amazing, but I really like the ability to shoot stuff out of line of sight, especially when there's so much obscuring terrain. And yes, even if it costs you command points, having the ability to do it is massive. Massive. And just having it in your back pocket, massive. 1 plus saves says, I play Sisters and the Exorcist is useful. I would agree. Being a Drukhari player, I wish I had out of line of sight shooting a lot of the time. I have to go up and like punch things or go around, or deep strike or, fly up to you really fast. Sean Allen says, bro, I can't. Says Sean, you can't what? I also play Necrons, and I would literally jump for joy if we had an ignore line of sight. Agreed. Sean says it's never consistent and dies too easily in the meta. Sure. There's a lot of units that are like that. But a lot of times you need to, if you use units outside of the box just to have access to a gimmick, 1 out of 10 games at a GT or 1 out of 6 games, that gimmick might win you the game, which is interesting. And then the other rest of the times you use it to hold an objective and do an action for data intercept or something. At least it did that. You know what I mean? My Exorcist is my love, says Sean, but she just doesn't cut it. Too much CP to make it useful. Fair enough. And that is and that's completely valid, and if it doesn't fit your playstyle, that's good. I'm talking mainly from my perspective and my playstyle. Having an Exorcist in my sister's list works wonders, and I love having it. And I know, for example, in those missions where somebody takes like while we stand, we fight, or to the last, and you could threaten that unit out of line of sight for a couple of CP with like melter rockets and like go like just nuke it from across the table and lower your opponent's points for winning the game. Worth the try, in my opinion. Siandach says Necrons have the Hexmark Destroy. I think they mostly suffer from being the early codex. Fair enough. 1 plus save says, I was taking flayed ones and crypto thralls just to deploy scramblers. Sometimes they even survive till the next turn and auto won me a game with Obsec. Nice. That definitely happens. Zero Crow says, I predict that Razorwing flocks will find their way back into the meta as smite sponges because of the Thousand Suns and Grey Knights releases. How do you feel about that? Well, I am known to put a couple of Razorwing beast packs in my competitive Drukhari lists for for smites and mortal wounds soaking up, as well as move blocking and just zoning out the backboard with very, very cheap, effective units. So, Sean says, I like punching things. I want to scratch the paint. Correct. You want to go kill it with a bunch of Repentia or Zephyrim. Totally fine. Save yourself the 180 points of the Exorcist and put yourself 10 Zephyrim and just go murder stuff with Morven Vols, reroll hits and wounds, and just go kill something. Definitely makes sense. So that was really cool. Let's see what other ones you got. Borderlands Bash. How big was this event? I'd say not big enough. Okay, you've all been here. You're like, you know what, Skari, stop chatting away. Ooh, Summer Bash GT. Oh, why do they call 9-person events GTs? Why? What is the point? What is the point of calling a 9-person event a GT? Like, please. Cool. The Summer Meltdown GT also happened this weekend. Oh, Matt Root playing Drukari. What? Oh, there you go. That was a 56 player 5-round event. So they did have 2 undefeated players. We had Matt Root playing Drukari. What kind of shenanigans is Matt Root playing? Obsidian Rose, Archon Master, Trueborn, Incubi, and then Cultist Strife, Succubus, 10 Witches, Mandrakes, 3 Reavers, 3 Reavers, and then Dark Techno Monsters, Drazar, 2 units of Rax, 2 units of 5 Incubi, and 6 Chronos and 4 Raids. So he's doing the Chronos, of course. Chronos Dark Tech is amazing, by the way. Still really, really good. Mm-hmm. 1+ saves as Sacrosanct, Penitent Engines, they punch really good. Sacrosancts punched good, definitely. Then we have Joshua Terry with his Death Guard. So Death Guard is still something to keep in mind. You know, they still do very, very well. You know, I still run up to a Death Guard army. I'm like, that is annoying. I don't want to have to deal with that. But still doing well, you know. So we've got Lord of Virulence, Plaguecaster, 40 Poxwalkers, bunch of Terminators, just regular Blightlord Terminators, Contemptor Dreadnoughts with Volkites. Then we've got 2 units of Death Shroud, Blight Spawn, Chaos Spawn, and a couple of Crawlers. Pretty standard Death Guard build. Terminators, Poxwalkers, Dreadnoughts that shoot stuff, and then a couple of like out of line of sight shooting Plague Mortar thingies. Cult Mechanicus with Tyler DeVries in 3rd place, Cult Mechanicus in 4th place, and Sisters in 5th. And then Demons, see, Demons are up there still, going 4-1 in 6th place. 4-1 as well. We had Imperium, which was more. Oh, Castellan and Admech. Okay. Trying to recreate the Catachan Castellan with Adeptus Mechanicus. Then more Demons. No, Iron Warriors, sorry. Iron Warriors and then Orks. Nice. And Eldari. So top 10. Yeah. Decent mix. And I stand by what I said. This is the most balanced edition of 40k. Most of these lists have gone 4-1, 4-1. You know, like they're 1 game away from being at the top. And it's not 50 million Space Wolf rocket launchers, which is never fun to have to play against. Because I've played against that many a times for many years. And that was back in the day when if something was busted, it stayed busted for like 2 years, and there was never an FAQ, ever. So good luck trying to, you know, get anything done. Then we had the Badger Brawl GTs, 28 people. Death Guard in 1st place, Drukari in 2nd, Cult Mechanicus in 3rd. Even Tyranids, Forces of the Hive Mind, in 4th place, with Dark Angels in 5th. So once again, top 5, totally different. Change my mind, please. Change, like, other than the odd outlier that's like, hey, the top 5 people at this event all played Cult Mechanicus. Okay, fine. That's like 1 out of a bunch of GTs. It doesn't change the fact that like Cult Mechanicus has a crazy 70% win rate, or the Drukari has a 60% win rate, or whatever it's sitting at right now. Doesn't change the fact that those factions are very, very good and need some rebalancing. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that regardless of that, it's cool to see the variety that we're seeing at the top. And so that's a couple of the GTs. If I did miss one, I'm sorry. Please leave me a message or a comment and point me in the direction of some of the other events that I might have missed. But the Lone Star Open was probably the big event of the weekend. And Oh my goodness, what a crazy. Now, of course, caveat aside, Sean Naden did put out a comment on Facebook today with a statement that he had an illegality issue with his list. He'd added one of the close combat weapons wrong, which did mean that one of his units was more expensive than the other, even though he wanted the one unit to be more expensive to the last, which is so he basically ended up using the less expensive unit for to the last in some of his games instead of technically the one that was the most expensive because of a point disparity that happened. He made a big post about it. He basically DQ'd himself for the event. And so shout out to Sean Naden, finding that error and then going up front and saying, "Hey, I made a mistake. Sorry." Right? And good on him. Good on him for like stepping out ahead of it, which I think is very, very important. Hello, Draken Davies. Hello from Wales. Cool. Hello. Isn't it late over there? It's like 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. What is this madness? Jocastis says, I have enjoyed watching your content for a few years now. Thanks for posting. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I couldn't do this without everybody who just hangs out, comments, watches, and genuinely enjoys the content that I put out. Battle reports and crusades and tournament reports and whatever it is. I know I'm not the biggest channel on YouTube. I know I don't get the most views, but I hope that what I have to say and how I say it and the information that I have to impart is valuable to you. And I do appreciate if you enjoy it. I really do. In fairness to Naden, he probably made his list on Thursday night. Yes, true. Still it's no excuse. You should, we're high level competitive professional gamers. You know what I mean? Like he also has his, we could go, he has a kid, he has a kid that was just born. So he's a new dad and, he's probably really tired. And I know that too. I've built a list when I've been going to mini wargaming, for example, and I'll build just a list. I'll be like, in the morning, I'll be like, what'd be really fun to play? Okay, let's do this, this, this. And I'll be like, after the game, I'll be like, you were 5 points over. I was like, I thought I triple checked it. That's happened to me once. But still, it happens, even with the best intentions. But it's I'm glad he came, basically stepped up. And that's the difference between the shady 40k players that get a bad rep to someone like Sean Naden, who has made mistakes in the past, but owns up to them and goes, damn it, my bad, I'm sorry. I meant no ill will or no ill intention, I'm DQing myself. And I'm pretty sure if he would have won, he would have done the same thing too. So I don't think it changes just because he didn't win. I think even if he would have won, he would have made that statement and been like, oh shit, I can't win this thing, right? And kind of do it that way. Josue Arriola says, hello, I'm thinking to get a Thousand Suns army. Cool. I like Thousand Suns. I hope you enjoy painting trim. There's lots of trim on those models. I was more just bringing levity to the situation since he's clearly a professional and DQ'd himself than giving an excuse. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, he also then again, we know us, yes, I agree. Sorry, didn't catch the levity of your comment, but I totally went into this whole theoretical and philosophical thought process, which I tend to do. I ramble a lot, if you haven't noticed. So let's look at the top 8. There are some shout outs that I want to go. So before we talk about the top 8, I want to talk about Wyatt Turk, who literally was this close to making the top 8 at this tournament with an Iron Warriors list with 2 Lords of Skulls and a Land Raider Achilles. 2 Lords of Skulls and a Land Raider Achilles and a Contempt Dreadnoughts Possessed. Some random stuff and a Lord Discord and a Hellstalker and a Master of Possession with 2 Lords of Skulls. He was literally, how many points away was he? He was quite literally, and he was like this many points away. He was not very many points away to be in the top 8. Bonkers. Okay. Then we have Brent Townsend, Cult Mech, Nathan Fennel, Drukari. Great game there at the end. So well played by him, taking it to as far as he did. Steven Schirmer with Knights almost made it in the top 8. We had Brett with Astra Militarum almost making it into the top 8 as well. Justin Moore, Cult Mech. Then we got Mike with Blood Angels. These are all players that went 5 and 1, which means they were really close to being a part of that top 8. We had William with Tau, Jared with Death Watch, and those are the big ones. So Death Watch, Tau, Blood Angels, Cult Mechanicus, Astra Militarum, Imperial Knights, Drukari, and Chaos Space Marines. And then, of course, a huge shout out to the one Orc player. Where is he? Yeah, Ben Jurek. He lost his last game, but he was by like 10 points or something. And he was running a custom stomp, and he was like 1 win away from being in the top 8 as well. with a custom stomper. Like, what kind of ridiculousness is this? Once again, I will sit on my soapbox and stand on my soapbox, because if I sat on my soapbox, I wouldn't be very tall. You couldn't see me in a crowd. So standing from my soapbox, I shall decree this is a really balanced edition of 40k. And I will take that to the grave, because it's awesome to see all these weird lists at a 165-person tournament being able to compete. So meta-wise, in terms of Meta Monday analysis, hold your horses, because if you like something, you can probably make it work. Now you have to, as Sean Aiden, like we interviewed Sean Aiden after the event, and I asked him, I said, which by the way, if you haven't already, go to the Frontline Gaming Network and watch the full day of streaming for day 2 that we had. It was fantastic. I got to shoutcast with Adam Camilleri, and that was really, really fun. And so we had Sean Aiden at the end, and we kind of just asked him, I said, so for anybody who wants to play with a subpar faction, what sort of, advice do you have? Now, he could have said, just don't make a list that's right. That was me making a joke. But he said, you have to understand that not everything is going to be at the same par. You have to understand you're probably going to have bad matchups that you might not have tools for, but you can really tackle the missions, and you can like apply the skill set, the tools that you have in very unique ways to sort of tackle what you're seeing in the current meta. And you just have to be very creative, right? So Ruben Garby says, I totally agree with you on that. Actually, I like where the game is at right now. And I feel like the game is at its biggest that it's ever been. And I feel it grew during quarantine, because a lot of people had a lot of time at home to paint all those models, or they didn't paint their models and just played a lot of TTS, which got them excited about playing. And that's a whole other note. TTS, it does not make you a good 40k player. It's great for testing stuff, but it's not the same. Not the same at all. This is an amazing cup for water. It lasts me 2 seconds because I drink like a fish. But it works really nicely. Okay, let's just go into the top 8 here. For the Lone Star Open. And for anybody who just tuned in, thank you for tuning in. And if you've just been watching, make sure you click that little like button, because it's cool and it helps the channel. And this is the Meta Monday analysis, which is one of 2 videos that I do for the patrons on the Patreon page. Every Monday and every Friday, I do like a list clinic where I sort of break down submitted lists and read them over and go over them and stuff. Those are exclusive videos, but today I've done it for all of you. Thank you for coming by, hanging out and chat, leaving a comment, all that good stuff. It's always nice to participate with every member of the community. And if you'd like to support the channel, the links are of course down in the description. Top cut, top 8, meta-wise. Tyler Johnson, his Drukari. Now he was running the he was running a bunch of witches, basically. So he had, and a couple of Void Raven bombers, which he took off in his game against Sean Naden. He decided to not put him on the table. That's I would have kept him on the table, because Sean Naden was able to sort of use his tools to kill other stuff. He needed to keep them on the board to sort of like put some pressure on. But I'm glad that he took that. Matthew Geyer with his Cult Mechanicus. His Mechanicus list was sort of like an MSU Mechanicus list, with sterilizers and a couple of the flyers, with only one big block of 20 instead of the more traditional, larger, multiple blocks of infantry that we're seeing at Cult Mechanicus. Oliver Smith in 6th place, he had his White Scars. Now, this is a traditional White Scar list with very similar to stuff like John Lennon used to play back in the day. But you have veterans. You've got Kassar Khan, a Tech Marine. You had 3 Relic Contempted Dreadnoughts with Volkites, just to put some pressure down range. You had 25 Vanguard veterans with Lightning Claw Storm Shields. Pretty standard build for White Scars. 2 units of 5 Devastators with multi-meltars in a Rhino, and 2 Land Speeder Storms to go out, do move quickly for an engage point, things like that. So a pretty standard White Scar build. I personally really like White Scars. I think they still have what it takes to compete with the best of the best. And the Devastators in the Rhino are probably one of the cool techs, because I believe they can like move the Rhino and like disembark out of the Rhino after it moved with like a strat, which then gives you like super range on the melters and a whole bunch of things as well. So that's pretty neat. Which model should I get first for 1,000 Suns? I don't know. Armon. I'd say get Armon or Magnus. Might as well. Go big. Go big or go home. Draken, you redacted your message. What happened? Cool. And this is more like a vase. Yes. It's a giant vase. I put flowers in this when I'm not filming. Other than that, I drink a lot of water. Okay, so then we go to Peyton. Now, Peyton was playing Drukhari, and his list was a little bit more traditional in that sense. He had the 6 Chronos, I believe. Yeah, 6 Chronos and 4 Raiders. So it's very much like what Matt Root is running right now. And 4 Raiders with Dark Techno Monsters. Then he had a Succubus, 9 Witches, 13 Hellions, a couple of units of Incubi, a couple of Rack units, some Trueborn with a Archon, a Succubus, and a Homunculus. And he ran it all in a Real Space Raider detachment, which was very cool. That was nice to see as well. Xiang Dax says the Inquisition caught him. Draken for using colorful language, I best. What is the best way to run the Lords of the Iron Thorns? I don't know who that is. Is that like a Dark Eldar faction or something? Then we have Colin McDade with his no, Marshall. There we go. So Marshall Peterson. Any Necron players in the house? Make sure you're paying attention. I was talking with John the Cron earlier today when we were filming, and I was telling about this list. And it's funny because John the Cron's list is very like his competitive list that he's been sort of honing locally and seeing quite good success with, starting to beat some of the players that he normally has had historical issues with, like beating, is very much based around Lich-Guard, right? Lich-Guard are just very consistent. They're great damage output. They're just really killy. So it was really cool to see Marshall's list go toe to toe with Sean Naden and give him a run for his money, which was really neat. So we had a battalion detachment. They have Eternal Conquerors and Relentless Expansionists. So they're all OBSEC, and they get a pre-game move, which is a pretty standard build for Necrons. Still really, really good. A Canoptek Plasma Site, 1 Locust Lord, 1 Overlord, and a Techno Monster. Yep. Then 2 units of 5 Immortals, 2 units of 9 Immortals, 2 Crypto Thralls, 9 Lich-Guard, 9 Lich-Guard with shields and swords, a 6 Scorptex, a Transcendent Citan, and 3 units of 3 spiders. And that's 2,000 points on the nose. 2,000 points on the nose. Excellent. Excellent. It's like, he lacks a bit of long range shooting. And I think that was really where the list sort of like, you could tell it lacked some shooting. It was great for everything else, but it couldn't really clear stuff in the shooting phase. So if you were to take that list as a Necron player and mix it, match it, adapt it, try to add in some like shooting elements that can help clear like some infantry or a tank or something, I feel like you'd be onto something. But this list was top 4 at a 165 player event, which is really, really cool. Colin McDade with his Cult Mechanicus came in 3rd. Now, he did have a more traditional blocks. We had 4 blocks of 20, 2 Vanguard, 2 Rangers. He had 2 units of Priests in the transports, and he had 2 units of shooty last cannon chickens, and he had the Raiders, which are the horse dogs. So a couple of transports as well, with a Manipulus, and a Marshal. So very standard, very good list. You can read it right there. This is not really much to talk about. 1 plus saves says, I've been arguing with the Necron group for months that warriors aren't as good as immortals, because warriors are only good in short range where they get tied up in melee and or die instantly. Warriors are not as durable as they were before. There are a lot of units that will pick up a whole unit of warriors in a single activation, which then means that they don't get the reanimation. Immortals, though, you can bring them in small squads, sure, save points, but they also have toughness 5, and so they tend to survive just a little bit more in some cases. I also really like. I'm a huge fan of things like the monolith, and I know I'm always out of left field, but in terms of like being tied up and things like that, the monolith can pull model units out of combat and things, which is really cool with like the Strat and whatnot. Anyway, that's a whole other topic on like weird Necron tech. And I made a comment on stream on the weekend where I said the problem with Necron players that don't see the success they want is they try and play Necrons as if they were Space Marines. And I think somebody told me to shut the F up. I was like, you have to play Necrons like Necrons. You can't play them like Space Marines or Imperial Guard. They're not Astra Militarum. They're not Space Marines. They're Necrons. You have to like play them like Eldar mixed with like Orks. It's like a weird esoteric combination. And you have to think not like a Space Marine. You have to think like a Necron. Anyway, it's like going into theory right now. Meta Monday analysis, the theory show. They synergize with the strats. Says with that as well. Mm-hmm. Do you think starting with 3 Venoms, 3 times 5 Cabalites, and Archon is a good idea? Yes. I like Venoms, I like Cabalites, and Archon's fantastic. If anything, I would actually do Archon, Master Archon, 10 Cabalites and a Raider, which I would make them Trueborn. They're one of the best units you can use. Trueborn are phenomenal. And then a couple of squads in Venoms, if you really wanted to. But if you want to have an Archon, make him a Master, take some Trueborn, because they're so good. Then we had Sean Aiden's Eldari list. Illegal. No, I'm just kidding. Sean, I love you, buddy. It's a shame that happened to your list, but good on you for stepping up like that. But his list, of course, is like as always, and seeing it in play was awesome. Like seeing him just pick apart his opponent's armies little by little and throwing away his models. It was very much like I felt like I was watching myself play, because everything that he was doing just felt like, oh yeah, like it's just he was putting his opponent, grabbing his opponent, putting his opponent in his pocket, and being like, "Yo, man, I'm gonna take you home," and then being like, and then pinning them in their zone and killing the things that were important. So please go watch those games; they're great. Ortarch Skyrunner, Farseer Skyrunner, 9 Shadow Specters, 5 Shadow Specters, 4 Shining Spears, 5 Swooping Hawks, 3 units of 3 Dark Reapers, 1 Night Spinner, 3 Shadow Weavers, and then a Harlequin detachment with the Troop Master that can jump out of the transport after it moved, which is really fast and killy. Great unit to just be annoying with. 5 Fusion Blaster troops, 6 Fusion Blaster troops, and 2 Star Weavers, and a Death Jester with a domino shroud, which is a relic that allows him to move once per game at the end of any phase. He just like pops away somewhere. And oh my goodness, it was cool to see him use that so jankily to like screen out things and hold objectives and contest stuff and push deep strikers back. And I was like, Domino, that was the first thing that popped up for me. Domino shroud on a death jester. What kind of madness is this? It was amazing to watch. So make sure you do. The Tempest launchers on the Reapers are money. Yes, so he has put the Tempest launchers on his Dark Reapers. And that is essentially a meta choice, right? So he's looked at his army, which is Croftold Eldar, and he's looked at the trend, which is large blocks of Adeptus Mechanicus infantry. So he looked at his list and went, how do I deal with that without changing my list too much? He found the efficiency of the Dark Reapers, taking the Exarch's gun off, putting a Reaper launcher on, or a Reaper launcher. So now he has basically 36 shots that can target a big block of infantry with decent AP. You know what I mean? And from out of line of sight, and with Doom on it probably to get some good rerolls, things like that. So very, very cool. Someone questioned my choice, says Zero. I'll get to that in a second. Tyler says, hi, Skari. Hi, Tyler. Tapley, how are you? What are your thoughts on how Death Guard are positioned at the moment? Well, we just went through a couple of events, GTs, where they won the event, or were at the top, or were undefeated. So I feel like they're in a strong position. You just don't get to see them. That people don't really have them like the front of their minds. Kind of like Necrons. They've become like, a sideshow, right? They have strong builds and they can do well. Sort of dull. You know what I mean? Like as a Death Guard player, it's probably very much monotonous. The same thing. You've got Poxwalkers, Terminators, a couple of characters, maybe Mortarion. A couple of tanks, and then you just kind of lumber around and kill things, and so it's probably because of that, the fact that it's a very monotonous sort of like build, essentially. Someone questioned my choice to do a double patrol, 1 Master Archon or 10 Trueborn, 1 normal Archon with Helm of Spite in Blackheart Raider and Incubi. I don't see the problem with a patrol of specifically the Trueborn. What? You can have 1 unit of Trueborn for every Master Archon in the detachment. So, and you can only have 1 Master Archon per Cabal per detachment. So you could have a patrol with an Archon, Master, Trueborn. You can have a second patrol with another Archon, Master, different Cabal with another unit of Trueborn, and a third patrol with a Master Archon with another unit of Trueborn. You could have 3 Master Archons and 3 units of Trueborn if you really wanted to. Joshua Scott says, oh, I literally thought this was going to be Warhammer 40k characters in MMA. Meta Monday analysis. 1 day only, Monday morning. We're going to fight, fight, fight. So are you a heel or a face? That's a term I learned by talking with JT from Play on Tabletop. He used to be a wrestler. And in one country, he was a face, and in another country, he was a heel. So you got to play both, which is pretty cool. Jumping from Necrons to Sisters, absolutely, the games are more fun. I've been having lots of success in mine. Build for everyone, since still usually have like 400 points left. Very true. Obsidian Rose Cabal specifically for Trueborn, and not doing a Master Archon for Blackheart Trueborn. I should clarify. But do you know about a face turn and a heel turn? No. I'm assuming it's when you turn a good character bad or a bad character good. You tag in, you're like, now you get to be my friend because we need to beat this guy up or something. I really don't follow wrestling, so I'm totally useless with this topic of conversation. And of course, let's talk about the man of the hour, Mr. John Lennon, who did end up winning, going 9 rounds. Now, a caveat, he did lose a game, but his loss was high enough that he was able to make the top 8 cut. Right, so it wasn't like 9 rounds all the way through with a single winner. It was 6 rounds to seed the top 8 players, and then the top 8 players played a single elimination. So very much like LVO. And he did lose a game. He lost against Colin McDade, which was the Adeptus Mechanicus. And then John Lennon ended up playing both of the Cult Mechanicus players and knocking them both out in the top 8. He literally played Admech, and then played Sean Naden. So, and he played Colin McDade a second time, and this time he won because he learned from his first game and he played it differently. It was a fantastic game to watch. So if you get a chance to watch it, do. It was very good about positioning, and Colin was pinned in the zone, and I feel like Colin misdeployed his army, and John was able to take full advantage of it. It was fantastic to see. But his list, and of course we did discuss earlier in the show how the addition of player place terrain would have had a big impact on how the battle sanctum was able to be added into the list, and how much that battle sanctum adds to the way that you can play your Sisters of Battle, which I think is a big difference. But he was running a Bloody Rose patrol with Morven Vol, 5 Battle Sisters, which, by the way, was the only OBSEC he had in his list other than the Dogmata being able to make something OBSEC. And it was hilarious because every time he'd play, it'd be like, well, if you only had more OBSEC, that wouldn't be a problem. But, he pulled it off anyway, so don't listen to this guy with the big mouth. 8 Repentia, 5 Zephyrim, 5 Zephyrim. Great to kill pretty much anything, especially units of Adeptus Mechanicus. Then we had an outright attachment of Ebon Chalice, and John swore by this. He swore by Ebon Chalice. He said that was the secret sauce, getting the first miracle dice being a 6, and the extra range on the flamers and the mortal wounds that you can do with the flamers. Like he said, Ebon Chalice was the secret tech that made his list do so well. So, any of you Sisters of Battle player out there, maybe take a second look at the Ebon Chalice stuff. Personally, I'm an Order of the Martyred Lady kind of person because I love running my Blade of Sacrifice Canonus with reroll hits and wounds because I don't take Morven Vol, and reroll hits and wounds, and I get +2 attacks, +2 strength if I've taken 2 wounds, and run around to do mortal wounds on stuff. So fun. That's me. That's my style of play. But if you want to win a big GT, well, then Ebon Chalice is what you want to use. Chad says, I feel like good Death Guard builds are like watching a UFC fight where the other guy gets taken down and wrestled to a decision loss over 5 rounds. Not the most pretty, but he gets the job done. 100%. Talking about MMA, that's how it plays with Death Guard. It's very monotonous. It's like, well, I hope you can kill 60 Poxwalkers and 20 Terminators. I'm just gonna go on objectives and kill you if you get close. And it's not exactly the flashiest way to win. Captain Athenos, I recommend for Cron players having issues. New Vanguard tactic report has been very good. Cron player beaten Stefan Sisters. Very cool. Like Necrons have oomph. Every one of the new books has oomph. It's just a matter of finding the oomph within the meh. And you can quote me on that. Sean says, I definitely agree that Ebon Chalice has slick capabilities, such versatility with an attachment. 100%. Josue Arriola. Hi, Skari. Hello, Josue. I'm thinking to get Imperial Guard instead of Thousand Suns. Catachan or Death Corps of Krieg? Ooh, Death Corps of Krieg. 100 times. Don't even have to think twice about that. If I was to play Sisters, I'd go for Bloody Rose. Yep, that's very straightforward. Sneaky thing like a second Sacred Rite. Oh, you are all Psychers? Cool. Half of my army auto denies on 5s. Oh, which, by the way, is incredibly powerful. I've had so many Sisters players come and tell me, oh man, I played this one Chaos player and he got 2 powers off whole game or something ridiculous because I just kept on rolling that 5 up, just being like, I just denied it. Oh, it's a miracle. Chad really liked the Necron list. Very cool. opposed to relying on hordes and reanimation. Yeah, like check it out. There's each of the lists has a lot of oomph that you want to play in. Okay, where were we? So Ebon Chalice, and he's running Celestine and his Gemini. We have 9 Sacrosancts, a 1 Dogmata whose job was to sit by the pray by the sanctum, just do the action to pray and get miracle dice all the time. 2 squads of 5 Dominions with Stormbolters, 2 Seraphim with double hand flamers, 2 units of Retributors with 2 multi-meltas and 2 heavy flamers in each, and 2 Rhinos, and then the Battle Sanctum. Yeah, that's it. It's pretty much it. It's pretty standard Sisters of Battle list. He just played it really, really well. And if you notice, in almost all of his games, John played conservatively the first couple of turns, and then on turn 3, turn 4, exploded and like put so much pressure on his opponent that his opponent had a very hard time coming back or clawing his way back onto the positioning part of the board, which is very, very important as well. Okay, so we're going to dive into the question part of the Meta Monday analysis and questions, which will be a couple of questions that I have on the Patreon. Of course, if you want to ask a question and you're in chat or watching live right now, make sure you post a question in the chat. And then after this, I'm going to go to bed because I have to go back to mini wargaming tomorrow, which I hope you've been enjoying the games and battle reports and stuff there. Just as a reminder, all the games I do on mini wargaming that go to their vault, right? I get to post on my Patreon page. So you get some cool additional content as well on there just by supporting me on Patreon, which is awesome. It's really cool, and I love doing the cool videos. It's like having a whole production, like studio that I get to do battle reports in, which is really fun. Randy Randall says, "Dear Skari, thank you for your analysis of my list a few weeks back. Absolutely. We're going to play a 1,000 point short league. My opponent will be Tau. The most demanding opponent I will play against plays Death Guard. My question is about secondaries would be which would be efficient for our point format. List is Obsidian Rose, Archon, 2 Cabalites, 10 Incubi, 2 Raiders and Ravager. And then a Dark Tech, Succubus, Dark Technomancer, Succubus, Rax, and Kronos. Okay. The Death Guard matchup has me boggled. Their units are very resilient, so I'm thinking I might have to play the objective game. Please give me thoughts on approaching these games." Yeah, so Randy, great questions. Thank you very much for asking them. So you're looking at how to deal with Death Guard at like a small point level. Yeah, definitely interesting. The biggest thing here is you have to play to the objectives. So you have to like look at what he has that can score objectives and kill it quickly. It's probably going to be the Poxwalkers. You have to kill the Poxwalkers very, very fast. You might have a Demon Prince and like shooting guys and a tank and a whole bunch of stuff, but the Poxwalkers have to die. Prioritize the Poxwalkers. You're going to lose a lot of models, but it gives you a leg up when it comes to scoring points. And if you can do that, you will more than likely squeak out a win. So that's my main thought: is kill the Poxwalkers. Kill the Poxwalkers. Kill the Poxwalkers as well. As for the Tau, since you're playing 1,000 point games, it's probably a small board. Yeah, you like just get up in his face real fast and charge him. Yeah, and just kill him. And the Kronos are great into the Tau matchup. Just abuse the Kronos like nobody's business. Just throw them right in his face, and have him deal with them, because Kronos are hard to deal with in small point values as well. Then we have Nubilis. Says, "Hi Skari, are there competitive concepts around Lelith Hesperax out there? How do they look like in your opinion?" That's a fantastic question. I do find that Lelith Hesperax is a choice that is overlooked because of the fact that the general Succubus is just better and cheaper. However, with the advent of with the advent of AdMech, even, Lilith Hesperax is not terrible to go into a large block of infantry and just cut it all down. It's funny because she has all the rules for being a master succubus without actually being a master succubus. Oh, she might be a master. No, I think she's a master succubus, but she has lots of attacks. She's good. She's not bad. You just have to give up a succubus slot for her, right? So that's the hard part. If you are taking multiple succubi, then yeah, why not? Try it out. And then you have to sort of build witches around her. So the list build that I would recommend doesn't really change. You just have a Lilith instead of like a Blood Dancer Triptych Whip, right? You still have Cult of Strife, which is one of the best cults, or the best witch cult, and you still have access to all the other stuff, Cabal, Coven, that sort of thing. So it's just a matter of like taking one out and putting her in, right? And she's a little bit, I think, yeah, she's about as durable as a regular succubus. So you kind of use her like a succubus. She just doesn't have the raw killing power of, say, the Triptych Whip, but she has the potential to do a lot more against certain targets because she has like more attacks, so can basically attack twice every time. But give her Blood Dancer, now that's a different story. She could cut some stuff. You know what? I'm gonna play with her. I'm gonna take her in the orc game that I'm gonna play tomorrow. Just so you can see. Or more like so I can see what she can do. I think that'd be hilarious to walk around and run around just murdering a bunch of orcs. Yes. Thumbs up for Lilith Hesperax. In the Discord, because we do have a Patreon exclusive Discord, could models with fly keyword fly over models or terrain when making consolidation or heroic convention moves? Says Kid. No. Fly only works in the movement phase for over terrain or models, and it only works in the charge phase for models, not for pieces of terrain. Yeah, so you have to measure up and down pieces of terrain, unless you have a stratagem that allows you to ignore vertical movement for terrain. The reason they did this is because they wanted to prevent the whole I'm deep striking 9 inches on top of you, which then means that technically horizontally the distance is less than an inch, so I can automatically make that charge because vertical distance didn't matter when I charged you. They've changed that now. Now you can't deploy vertically when you deep strike. It's all like you all measure horizontally, so it's like an infinite tower 9 inches from a model, so you don't have to measure up on the buildings and stuff anymore, which I learned this weekend. Yeah, read your FAQ. It's interesting. Changes the way that I used to zone the table out against a whole bunch of stuff because I don't have to be so precise about zoning out like the top levels of floors anymore, which helps me, right? But it doesn't help my Genius Occult player friends that like to deep strike little units in random places. James Teal says Tempest Launcher. Yes. Zero Crow says, enjoy your time at Mini Wargaming. Thank you very much. I'm excited. I'm going there tomorrow. I'm going to play probably some Age of Sigmar tomorrow against Luca. And then what's been really cool is I've gotten to film, edit, games master, and write and direct and develop a full narrative campaign at Mini Wargaming. So of course they do, one episode for the normal YouTube, one for the Vault. Like it goes back and forth. So it's a 6-game campaign, and the whole thing is going to be available on my Patreon. So, but I got to get Matthew to play my campaign. Boom, that's right. Which it's so exciting. And it's the first of many. I've already got some really cool ones up here for like a Drukhari one and a whole bunch of stuff. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Ian Colbeck, thank you so much for the super chat. That means a lot. I really, really appreciate it. It says, good day, mate. Keep being awesome. Easy one out of the best, most involved YouTubers 40k out there. Thank you. I appreciate it. What do you think of the new Grey Knights 1000 Suns box? Going to be playing much of them? Well, to be honest, I'm excited about the release of the box. I think that new Castle and Crow is sexy as hell. I think it's it looks really cool. And I'm really curious to see what they've done with like Zangors and like first of all, that new Thousand Sun dude, this like the little horror like swirling around him, that is essentially a Thousand Sun chaplain. I think that's really awesome. Like, I love the fact that they're adding 9th edition mechanics to the Thousand Sun book. I'm really curious to see what they do with Grey Knights, and I just cannot wait for Thousand Suns to get like the new treatment, like more wounds and things like that. New psychic powers, maybe new psychic trees, world traits, relics, and then sort of conglomerating all the stuff that they had with, the cults and the cults of magic and stuff, and kind of like making them their own thing, kind of like they do with Death Guard, right? And and then I hope they expand a lot on the Zangori stuff, because there's a whole bunch of units that a lot of people probably haven't even seen before because they started playing like after they were cool. Zangors and Enlightened and the Mutalith Vortex Beast, which is in the Thousand Suns Codex. You know, and like then Rubric Marines. And there's this whole culture of like Tzeentchian creatures, um, that like Chaos Spawn, Tzeentch Spawn, and things like that. Like that will act differently than Nurgle Spawn, because Nurgle Spawn get to be cool and have disgustingly resilient with like command points. So maybe you can get Tzeentchian Spawn to like spew random magic and do like mortal wounds to things, and who knows? Like, you know, by the way, Games Workshop, I'm available for any and all crazy ideas you might need for the development of your games. Yes, crazy spawn. But thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the question as well. As for playing them, I'm probably going to play them a lot because I'm been going to mini wargaming a lot, which means I'm probably going to play them a lot when they're new, especially just to kind of showcase them. Skari says, Sean, what are your thoughts on allowing a battle sanctum across all tournaments? Right now, the LSO really only allowed it because of player place terrain. I mean, it's enormous. It is enormous. I think there should be a caveat for fortifications in an event. I know, for example, at the World Team Championships, they made it very simple. They banned them. No fortifications. Okay, it's a bit of a stretch, Tom, if you're listening. Neil, why? I know why, because it's just, it's easier that way, especially when there's like set terrain and things like that. But in most tournaments, being able to say nudge a piece of terrain the minimum amount necessary, or remove a piece of terrain and put your sanctum down, that would make sense to me. But I feel like if you want to play with the models that you have available to you in your codex, you shouldn't not be able to take them just because of the fact that there's a forest in the way. I can't take my bunker because there's a forest. Well, great. So that's my thought process. So as a TO, I'd err on the side of letting your opponent play with it. However, it's a fine line, because then there's the gamers going to game the system. There's going to be someone who brings like the biggest piece of terrain just so that you can like move a piece of terrain over or whatever, to be like, this is going to help me every game, that sort of thing. So Draken says, how do you think the Drukhari match up against Deathwatch? It's like almost like any other Space Marine. However, Deathwatch have a lot of tricks to deal with Xenos. So you need to know what their tricks are. If you know what their tricks are, you can prepare and you can get ready at dealing with them. Just don't overextend. But they die like Space Marines. They're just Space Marines. Andy3000 says, I'm pretty new, finishing up my first 2,000 point army based on the lore of Gaz. Ooh, cool. My models I can pull from are limited, but I have lots of boys. Any advice? Well, you're definitely going to need a codex, so get yourself a codex when you can. Stay tuned to the book review when we do that with Steve Pamprine and Richard Kilton, which will be sometime this week. Those are some big Orky names, which is going to be super fun. Hey, Mr. Sarapata, what's going on? You finally caught a live show. You did. It is also really late. I tend to do these live shows at like 5:30, but this was me at 5:30. I was sitting on the couch and literally passed out. My cat was like purring on my lap, and I was like, I need to get up and do Meta Monday. And then I was like, I need to get food, and I was like, 10 minutes. And then half an hour later, I woke up. I was like, whoa, gotta get food. But it's nice to see you in chat. So Gaz is great. Boys are great. I can't really give you a good review of like what to take in an Orc Codex yet. I need to read the Orc Codex, and once I've read the Orc Codex and seen it in action, I'll have more of an idea of things that work really well for it. Scorpio says, "What AOS army has been your favorite to play?" Death, 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 and all death things. Death. Nagash has been my favorite. He's such a cool model, and apparently he's really strong right now. But he's amazing. I love him. But death. And if I could play my Tomb Kings, I would every game. But they've been legended, which is balls. Amadrer says, "I wished Thousand Suns hadn't lapped World Eaters and Emperor's Children with proper release." Yep. Well, hopefully World Eaters and Emperor's Children get a proper release, not just a reprint. Pink Gorilla, hey, all the way from the beginning of the show, Pink Gorilla. "Is it appropriate to use the newest Orc Codex the week after it's released in a tournament, or should I wait to use it competitively until it's been out longer regularly?" Each event is different. Check with your event organizer. Personally, I allow a Codex on a tournament for the day that the Codex is released. But I will allow both versions of the Codex, even my majors and GTs. Why? Because nobody wants to play with their old, silly rules. You want to play with your new, fun stuff. So I'll allow both. But check with your TO. Sometimes they'll have a week cutoff, a 2-week cutoff. Sometimes they'll have a month cutoff. So it just depends on the event. Replacing a forest with a Sylvaneth forest, says LOL Chaos. Correct. Diablo Slay. Skari gonna get picked up to make Blood Bowl team? Yes. I was just asking because my friend started collecting Deathwatch. Yep, definitely. You definitely need to keep track. Read the Codex. Honestly, read it. Read the strats. Get to know your opponent's army. Feel you on the Tomb Kings, my old fantasy vampire counts army. Yep, it's not the same. So I've been sticking to 40k. I know I've got all my Tomb Kings staring at me in that box over there, and I'm gonna have to rebase them all to squares because apparently square bases are a thing again with the old world coming back. This codex is different though with the silly Elite release. Well, they did the same with the Sisters of Battle codex. They did the whole like release in the box set, and then they released the codex to the general public afterwards, right? Hey, RPG Luminary, what is going on? Thanks for tuning in and saying hello. You're catching us at the end of the show, but thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to call it here. Huge shout out to everybody. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, consider supporting the channel on Patreon. The links are down below. You get access to 2 really cool exclusive videos every week, the Meta Monday and the List Crunch that happens on Fridays. A huge community of over like almost 300 people from all over the world that are really positive and great hobbyists and gamers from everywhere. So, you get to add yourself to the Discord and chat with us and all that good stuff. Really appreciate it. And all that good stuff. Other than that, like the video, share it if you enjoyed it. Tell people about the fact that there's this weird person that plays Drukhari all the freaking time and makes battle reports about them. And that's it. I'll be here doing anything that you need me to do. If you have any questions, you can send me over, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And I will be back on the next video. Yeah, give it a watch back, RPG Luminary. Leave a comment, like, share, all that good stuff. You are all amazing. I've been Skari, your grateful host, signing off until next time. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate it. The Dark Kin. Stay hydrated, everybody. Bye. And this is where I hum.